There are apologies that repair damage, and there are apologies that announce submission. Most people confuse the two and then wonder why they are treated like furniture. You were taught, early, to apologize as a reflex. Not because you were wrong, but because silence made others uncomfortable, because authority frowned, because harmony was valued above truth. That training never left your nervous system. It shows up in your shoulders, in your tone, in the way you preemptively shrink before anyone asks you to. Watch what happens in ordinary rooms, at work, at the table, in relationships. Someone expresses an edge, a limit, a preference, a boundary that costs something. Immediately the body flinches and the mouth adds a softener, a little verbal kneeling, an apology where none was required, not for harm done, but for existing with weight. That is not politeness. It is a tell. Power dynamics are not announced, they are inferred, and nothing signals inferiority faster than apologizing for what does not violate ethics, only expectations. The first thing people apologize for is their own presence, taking space, taking time, speaking without permission disguised as courtesy. Sorry to bother you. Sorry for the long message. Sorry, just one more thing. None of these are moral admissions. They are confessions of perceived unworthiness. You are telling the room that your existence is a minor inconvenience that must be compensated for in advance. Notice the biology underneath, the micro rush of cortisol, the need to placate, the ancient mammalian impulse to signal non-threat. In the wild, lower animals do this with posture. Humans do it with language. You hunch verbally. You make yourself smaller before anyone asks. And the room learns. It learns how to treat you. The second apology is more subtle because it wears the mask of virtue. You apologize for your standards, for not wanting what is offered, for declining, refusing, choosing differently. Sorry, I just don't feel comfortable with that. Sorry, I can't make it. Again, no harm has occurred. No promise was broken. But the apology sneaks in because you were trained to believe that wanting less chaos than others is an insult. This is where resentment is born. Not because you said no, but because you apologized for saying no. The apology reframes your boundary as an offense that requires absolution. It invites negotiation. It invites pressure. It invites someone else to become judge over your internal world. People who do not apologize for their standards are often mislabeled as cold, arrogant, difficult. In reality, they are legible. You know where they stand. There is no hook to pull on, no loose thread of guilt. The third apology is the most corrosive because it masquerades as humility. You apologize for clarity, for being direct, for naming what everyone feels but pretends not to. Sorry if that came off harsh. Sorry, I'm probably wrong, but this is the apology that disarms your own words before they land. You sabotage your authority mid-sentence. Watch the effect. The message weakens. The listener leans back, not because you were cruel, but because you withdrew your own spine while speaking. You ask not to be taken seriously. There is a quiet violence in this. Toward yourself. None of this means you never apologize. That would be adolescent and brittle. Apologies matter when there is real damage, when you overstep, betray, deceive, or injure. Then an apology is not submission. It is accountability. It restores symmetry. But apologizing where there is no moral debt does something else entirely. It flips the frame. You place yourself as defendant in a trial that no one formally called, but everyone now feels licensed to attend. Look back at your own history. The times you were disrespected rarely followed silence. They followed unnecessary concessions. Tiny surrenders stacked over years, each one reasonable, each one forgettable, until the pattern solidified and you could no longer locate the moment you taught people how to speak to you that way. This is why some people seem naturally respected. It is not charisma. It is not volume. It is not aggression. It is the absence of these apologies. They do not ask forgiveness for breathing, choosing, or seeing clearly. They do not over-explain. They do not preemptively lower their status to make others comfortable. Their calm is misread as dominance. In truth, it is internal alignment. The uncomfortable part is this. If you stop apologizing for these things, some people will react badly. Not because you harmed them, but because you removed a familiar lever. They benefited from your self-doubt. They will call you changed, cold, difficult. Let them. You are not responsible for managing the emotional economy of every room you enter. You are responsible for not lying about your own worth. Strength is not loud. It is precise. It knows when an apology heals and when it poisons. It does not scatter sorry like incense to ward off imagined threats. It waits. It speaks cleanly. It stands where it stands without theatrics. If this feels confrontational, good. That means you recognize the habit. The next time the apology rushes to your tongue, pause. Ask yourself a simple question without drama. Did I actually violate a value, or did I merely disappoint an expectation? Answer honestly, then speak accordingly. Good. Then we move past the surface and into the mechanism. What actually happens when you stop apologizing for those things is not social chaos. It is exposure. You expose the hidden contracts that were never spoken, but always enforced. The unspoken deal where you play smaller so others don't have to confront themselves. When you withdraw the apology, you don't become aggressive. You become neutral. And neutrality is unbearable to people who rely on your reactivity to feel positioned. Here is the inversion most never see. The person who pressures you is almost always more fragile than the one who caves. They need movement from you. Agreement, defense, justification, softness. Anything that proves they still have access to your internal state. When you apologize unnecessarily, you feed that need. When you don't, you starve it. Pay attention to common micro-conflicts. Someone interrupts you. You pause, then continue without apologizing. The interruption now sits with them. Someone challenges a decision you've already made. You acknowledge the comment and don't explain further. The tension hangs. Someone accuses you of tone, intention, attitude. You don't rush to clarify your character. You let the accusation exist without decorating it. This is not manipulation. It's refusal to perform. Most social aggression is bait. Not overt hostility, but small tests. Are you pliable? Will you fold? Will you explain yourself into a corner? The apology is the expected move. It signals that the frame has shifted and you are now on defense. Remove it and the entire exchange reorganizes. Silence is the simplest example. Not the dramatic kind, the clean kind. Someone pushes. You don't react immediately. You don't justify. You don't counterattack. You let the moment breathe. That pause forces the other person to hear themselves. Many people have never sat with their own pressure unreturned. They reveal themselves quickly when no one rushes to cushion them. Sometimes they escalate. This is where people panic and think they've lost control. In reality, you've removed a stabilizer that benefited them. Escalation is not power, it's leakage, and you don't need to comment on it. You don't need to name it, you just don't join it. Another inversion, agreement. Not submission, not sarcasm, strategic agreement. Someone says, "You're being difficult." You don't defend. You say, "That's possible," and nothing else. No explanation, no correction. You've just denied them a wrestling match. There is nothing to grab. People expect resistance or collapse. Agreement short-circuits both. It removes the moral charge. And without moral charge, their leverage disappears. This is why clarity without apology feels threatening. It leaves no opening, no guilt seam, no emotional debt. When you say, "I'm not available for that," and stop there, the sentence is complete. Adding "sorry" reopens it. It turns a statement into a plea. Understand this deeply. The goal is not to dominate interactions. It is to remain unhooked, to stay sovereign inside your own nervous system while others manage theirs. The moment you apologize to reduce tension you didn't create, you've taken responsibility for someone else's discomfort. That is the real power transfer. Watch skilled negotiators, surgeons, judges, people who make irreversible decisions for a living. Their tone is not harsh, it's economical. They don't rush. They don't soften truths with unnecessary guilt signals. When they apologize, it is rare and specific. Never ambient, never habitual. Contrast that with the over-apologizer, always adjusting, always scanning, always managing, exhausted, yet convinced they are being kind. But kindness without boundaries is just fear with manners. There is a moment, usually subtle, when someone realizes you will not play the old game. They test once more. Then something shifts. Either they recalibrate and treat you with respect, or they drift away. Both outcomes are information. Neither requires apology. This is where many people get lost. They think strength means confrontation. It doesn't. Most of the time, it means letting awkwardness exist without rescuing it. letting silence do the work you used to do with explanations, letting others sit with disappointment without you absorbing it as guilt. You are not punishing anyone by withholding unnecessary apologies. You are correcting an error in accounting. You are returning responsibility to its rightful owner. If this feels dangerous, that's because you've been trained to equate approval with safety. But approval is volatile. It changes with mood, context, hierarchy. Self-respect is quieter, more stable, less negotiable. The shift is internal before it is social. You stop asking, "How do I look right now?" and start asking, "Am I aligned with what I actually mean?" That alignment changes your posture, your timing, your voice. People respond to that long before they consciously understand why. And yes, some will accuse you of being different. They're right. You are no longer cushioning their projections with your self-erasure. This block is not about tactics you deploy. It's about reactions you withdraw. The power was never in what you added. It was in what you stopped giving away for free. Sit with that. Then we finish where most people never arrive. Not with behavior, but with identity. If you trace unnecessary apologies far enough back, you don't find manners. You find fear of exile. A child learns early that belonging is conditional. Approval comes when you are easy, agreeable, low friction. Disapproval comes when you are heavy, slow, inconvenient, precise. The body remembers this long after the mind invents better stories. So the adult keeps apologizing not to be polite, but to survive an old threat that no longer exists in the same form. The apology is a relic, a ritual offering to an invisible authority that once mattered. This is why stopping feels wrong before it feels right. You are not just changing speech, you are withdrawing a signal that once kept you safe. The nervous system protests. It calls the feeling danger, but what it really means is unfamiliarity. Here is the sober truth. The world does not punish you for strength. It punishes you for incoherence. When your words say one thing and your posture says another, people sense blood in the water. When you apologize for clarity, you fracture yourself. One part speaks, another retreats. That split is what invites pressure. Integrated people don't feel the need to announce confidence. They don't perform hardness. They simply don't contradict themselves. Their no has the same temperature as their yes. Their silence is not strategic, it is accurate. They don't rush to correct misinterpretations because they don't need to be seen as anything in particular. This is where shadow enters the conversation. Many people apologize excessively because they are afraid of their own capacity to offend, disappoint, or dominate. They disown that capacity and call it morality. But what you disown does not disappear. It leaks. It shows up as passive aggression, resentment, self-betrayal, or it shows up as collapse. The sovereign adult does something else. They acknowledge their capacity for impact without dramatizing it. They accept that being clear will sometimes hurt, that choosing will sometimes exclude, that not everyone will like the version of you that no longer kneels verbally, and they allow that reality to exist without flinching. This is not cruelty, it is adulthood. Notice how children explain themselves endlessly, and adults do not. Not because adults are wiser, but because they've accepted a basic limit. You cannot manage every interpretation. Trying to do so is a form of control disguised as kindness. Apologies often function the same way. An attempt to pre-edit the emotional response of others so you don't have to sit with uncertainty. When you stop, something quiet happens. You begin to feel the weight of your own words again. You choose them more carefully, not because you're afraid, but because you respect their effect. Paradoxically, you speak less and mean more. You apologize less and repair more. And when you do apologize, it lands differently. It has gravity, because it is rare, because it is specific, because it is not tangled with shame. It says, "I see what I did, and I take responsibility." Not, "Please don't reject me." That distinction changes everything. There is a moment of grief in this transition. You may realize how many relationships were propped up by your self-erasure. How many dynamics depended on your willingness to absorb discomfort that wasn't yours. Some of those structures will collapse when you stop apologizing for breathing. Let them. They were never stable. They were just familiar. What replaces them is quieter. Fewer words, fewer explanations, more internal solidity. You start to feel where you end and others begin. Guilt loses its automatic authority. Discomfort becomes information, not an emergency. This is the shift from reactive morality to embodied ethics. You no longer ask, "Am I being nice?" You ask, "Am I being clean?" Clean in intention, clean in speech, clean in ownership. You don't use apologies to wash away tension you're afraid to feel. You let tension clarify what matters. The people who remain in your life adjust. They sense the difference immediately, even if they can't articulate it. Conversations slow down. Power games lose their flavor. You are no longer available for certain roles: the agreeable one, the explainer, the emotional janitor, and you don't replace those roles with new masks. You don't become the cold one, the harsh one, the dominant one. Those are just inversions of the same dependency. You become harder to place because you are less performative. This is why secure people rarely talk about boundaries. They live inside them. They don't announce standards. They embody them. There is nothing to apologize for because nothing is misaligned. The final integration is simple, but not easy. You stop using language to negotiate your worth in real time. You let your presence speak first. You let your decisions stand without decoration. You apologize when you violate your own values, not when you trigger someone else's feelings. That is the posture of someone who has made peace with their shadow, who knows they could be sharper, colder, more cutting, and chooses precision instead, who doesn't need to prove they are good because they are no longer hiding from what they could be. If this resonates, you don't need to announce a change. Don't make a vow. Don't correct past behavior publicly. Just notice the next apology forming. Let it pass if it doesn't belong. Feel the silence after. Stay there. That silence is not emptiness. It's where authority lives.